Yeah, we bring reviews of your house, talk to our dudes of your house. I bring my views of your house, wrestling truths of your house. We talk to you in your house, we keeps it cool in your house, we keeps it cool in your house. I'm spitting truths in your house. Yes. Mark's hating on his fans, Becky's niche on the man. Play with two like a lion, household a dangerous alliance. I am a nightmare like Cody, and I'm overcoming like Kobe. No, they cannot hold me. Come listen, I'm hosting, critiquing, I'm boasting. This wrestling I'm knowing.
My name is Brian Pillman Jr., and you're listening to the In Your House podcast.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to In Your House, starring Alakon Howse and my man, Michael Hutchison. That's Mikey Hutch. This is the People's Podcast. Haha. Hey, you guys already know what it is. We give you that work when it comes to this professional wrestling here in 2019, moving into 2020 and moving forward. I do believe that we have a renaissance coming. I do believe that wrestling is about to be great again, and I do believe that next week, May 25th, AEW has a pay-per-view, Double or Nothing. It is going to be amazing. MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada. And hey, everything that goes on with that show, come and kick it with your boys, Con and Hutch, over here at In Your House, because we will be having a live reaction special where we will also be giving out prizes. The Spreaker chat will be hot and open, ready for your questions, ready for your feedback on the show. We're going to give you that work. And that's what we're about to do today, man. There's so much to talk about lately with wrestling. So much to talk about. And that's what we do it In Your House. It's amazing. It's great. But a lot of the things that's going on, it's not so great. And it's backstage type stuff. It's backstage type stuff. And that's why we wanted to do something special today. With the news that broke out earlier this week, we wanted to have a really, really huge, hot button episode, because this is a hot button topic. So, of course, I have my man Mikey Hutch with me. Say what's up to him, bro.
How we doing, everybody? Good to be here, sitting here about to tackle a very, very tough subject, man. Yeah. I mean, a subject that, let me preface this right out of the gate. I've never been backstage in WWE. I know nothing about it. I'm a mark just like you guys. Just like everybody that, probably downloads this podcast and watches this art that we love, this professional wrestling thing. Yeah. And, but yeah, regardless, we're going to try to talk about it. And even if it's a hypothetical thing, I think it's going to prompt a very interesting conversation. And if even a quarter of it's true, it's bad. It's bleak. But regardless, it's good to be here and look forward to chopping it up with everybody here.
I agree with you. And you said everybody here. That's because, once again, we are doing a wrestling roundtable super slam. So we had to bring in some heavy artillery for this episode, and I brought back a returning guest, and he is the host of the Slam Sessions podcast. You've heard him here on In Your House before. It's Albert Albanese. How are you doing, bro?
I'm doing great, Con. Thank you for having me back, and thank you guys for all of us actually getting together, sit down, and getting to talk about something that's becoming a pretty big controversial topic on the internet.
Yes, sir. And also, we have a new guest. And that is my man Andre Joseph. He is the host of the Silver Screen Action Figure Podcast. How are you doing, bro?
Good to be here, Con. This is a big opportunity, and welcome to everybody. Ever since I saw this article this week, it was just so much to digest, and I said I couldn't just keep this to myself. I had to say something about it. So this is the perfect opportunity to let that out.
Absolutely, bro. And I thank you for coming on. I appreciate you. And, of course, my man, Albert, a great, great returning guest coming back. You bless our podcast here. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this. This is going to be probably a super, super hot episode. A little hot cheese action on this one. And and that's really because, man, there's so much going on in wrestling, and a lot of it is backstage, and a lot of it has to do with, iconic figure of wrestling, possibly. I don't really think there's much argument, but man, the greatest promoter in professional wrestling history, and that's Vincent Kennedy McMahon, and it really feels like there's a whole lot going on behind the scenes, and as Michael said, if even a little bit of this is true, it's something to definitely talk about. And a report came out earlier this week, that is, and just so you guys in the household know, this is going to be as organized as you guys are used to here at In Your House. I am going to present an issue, and I am going to go one person at a time. We will be going Michael, we will be going Albert, and we will be going Andre for these issues. So I'm going to prattle them off, and I'll be ending it. I'm going to prattle these off, and I'm going to, of course, ask the questions and see what they feel about this. And these things having to do with Vince McMahon and the craziness that seems to have been going on backstage. One of the things that I see here, just a couple of things, is reading these reports, man. These reports, guys. Vince is in the announcer's ears to a sentence, and he gets on them for tiny mistakes. I know that you got to let these guys be organic. At least that's my opinion. But Michael, why don't you go ahead and start us off on Vince just yammering in the announcer's ears every chance they try to speak.
Well, I think what it boils down to is just another example of micromanagement. It's everything. He has to be in control of everything. Yeah. And it's not like the man doesn't have clout, because let's face it, wrestling wouldn't be what it is without Vince McMahon. Love him or hate him, we wouldn't have what we have. We probably wouldn't be sitting here talking about it right now if it wasn't for Vince McMahon. Let's be real. Mm-hmm. But he's also, not to swing a pendulum of judgment at anybody, but he's a bit of an egomaniac too. He's all about himself. But that being said, man, yeah, he just manages everybody. And I think that's just an example with the announcing, the talent, with them not being able to be themselves, which I'm sure we're going to cover later. And it's just bad, and it shows. It shows. You got Renee Young is out there drowning every single week, saying these BS lines, just and talking while talent's out there trying to cut a promo. She's still there trying to yammer on and say stuff. She's lost out there. Nobody's trying to produce her at all. And then everybody's like, Renee Young sucks. Renee Young isn't getting produced. She's not getting the attention that, the Michael Cole has gotten, and all the other previous announcers have gotten. You know what I mean? And again, that's just my personal opinion. Yeah. But and because again, regardless, Renee Young has the talent to be able to be a great announcer there. Yeah. They're just not letting her do it. Why that is, I don't know. Is it because her dude left? Possibly. I don't know. But yeah, again, it's just a bad look.
And I gotta agree with you there on that, man. Now I'm gonna throw this one over to my man Albert. How's it going, bro? What do you think about this?
So here's my angle on this. Mm-hmm. Think about this. I don't know, in the 80s or the early 90s with Bobby the Brain Heenan, mm-hmm. Who was one of the best color commentators in the business. He was a manager. He had such, he could talk so well, and then, he became the color commentator. Imagine Vince trying to feed Bobby the Brain Heenan lines. Like, I couldn't even imagine that. Even in the 90s with Jerry Lawler and JR, one of the best, most classic duos in the history of the wrestling business on the mic, and Vince McMahon in their ear 24/7 yelling at them and telling them what to get across. Now, to a point, I understand where Vince is coming from. We have this issue where we're a publicly traded company now. Certain things are hot button items. There are certain hot words. There are certain things that these people should be talking about and should be saying. And when they don't say them, I get that. Or when they say the wrong thing, I understand that it hurts. In his mind, it hurts their brand. Mm-hmm. But there are certain points where you have to just say, hey, guys, look, I trust what you're doing. Let's just fly with it. And then if it's a mistake, yeah, okay, you can get into their ear and go, hey, guys, you can't say that, say this, or push this, or make sure you talk about the pay-per-view coming up next month. I understand producing them, but by yelling in their ear and micromanaging them, it's like Michael said, you have somebody like Renee Young who isn't used to being in this spot, who's now drowning on air because she doesn't know what she's supposed to be doing. Yeah, and that's a bad spot for any announcer to be in. Imagine somebody being in all of our ears trying to do this podcast. That's not going to help.
I agree. Albert, great points. Great points. I have to say that I agree with that wholeheartedly. That is going to position me to throw it to my man over here, Andre. Will you please get in on this, bro?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm with Albert as far as the fact that, when you used to watch Heenan and Monsoon, or even like the combination of Heenan, Monsoon, and Vince back in the 80s and 90s, there was something more organic, and you could have the combination of calling the match and trying to tell the story at the same time. But it seems like over time, as they started phasing out JR and King, where it just became more about the story. And you end up with Michael Cole and this very milquetoast type of approach to commentating, which, it bored the hell out of me half the time. It took something away from watching a number of matches that could have been far more special to see if you had like a Jim Ross on commentary. Yeah. And, that's why I was so upset when they decided with Mauro Ranallo, who I thought was like a breath of fresh air when he was doing SmackDown. Mm-hmm. Like, he was somebody that sounded like old school NWA type of commentating and really knew how to call those matches down to the middle. But the fact was, well, you had all this stuff going on, and, he and Vince didn't see eye to eye. Then there was the JBL thing, and they just like pulled him off and then brought him back on, but for NXT. Yeah. So it's just like now, you could kind of tell by watching it. I mean, sometimes Corey Graves is entertaining to listen to, but half the time, it's just like, even to get through Raw sometimes, that 3-hour format, by 9:45, I am just out, and those commentators are not helping me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I agree with that. That's also great points. I just feel like you have got to let these kids be who they are. You can't just keep feeding them lines. I mean, I can understand. Give them guidelines. Don't be in their ear 24/7. If you want them to touch certain issues or say certain things, give them the guidelines before the show. Give it to them before the show. That's my opinion on it. Because if they got this far, if you are good enough to get this far in the business, you did something right. That means you prep. That means you research. Let them show prep. In my eyes, the problem is the lack of preparation. It's the lack of preparation. Give them the knowledge, the information, and the things that you want them to say ahead of time, and then they will touch it throughout the show. And if there's anything that changes, then get in their ears and let them know. But why does it have to be a constant? It doesn't make sense to me. That's my opinion on it. I just think that it can be done better. You can manage it better. It's poor management, guys. That's just my opinion on that. So moving right along to the next topic here that I wanted to discuss, and this was a discussion that me and Michael had before. We'd been talking about Dana Brooke, and me and Michael like Dana Brooke. That's right, Mike.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna say she's like high on the list, so to speak, but I'm not gonna say she's not quite Alicia Fox. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
Bad. You know what I mean? She's not the. I'm not gonna say here be like, oh, her moveset's not the greatest or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, she's not the greatest in the ring, but you know what? She's got potential, and you know everybody can get better, and you know she's got the basics down, I think, as far as watching her and everything, and so yeah, I mean she's all right, I guess.
I honestly, I'm cool with Dana Brooke, and the reports that came out here about Dana Brooke, it just kind of is weird to me because I don't think that she's a bad wrestler. I don't think that she blows me away. I think that she has potential. I think there's a lot of untapped potential with Dana Brooke, but the reports coming out about Dana Brooke is that she'd been the hardest worker for the last 3 years. She goes to the performance center, she shows up early and helps set up the ring, and she gets in the ring so she can get better, and they'll pitch something, creative will pitch something for her, and nothing happens, I guess, from what I understand, until recently when she got into the Money in the Bank ladder match. Somebody that works that hard for 3 years, and you can't find anything for them is a little bit odd to me. Michael, where are you at on the rumors about Dana Brooke and no progression with her in the last 3 years?
Well, I mean, it's whether or not Vince McMahon likes you or not.
Yeah.
I mean, if he don't see nothing in you, he's not going to give you the time, no matter what you do. And it's sad. I can't imagine being in that spot. You know, I sit here again just watching it on TV, and sometimes that's a chore in and of itself. I couldn't imagine working for the guy. You know what I mean? And trying to impress him and be like, bro, I just give me 5 minutes on TV. You know, because I'm sure that would be more than enough for them. Just give them an opportunity is all they're wanting. Grab the brass ring, right? That's what he's always talking about. So, yeah, man, and he probably put her in there. I'm even going to say, and this is not a diss on Dana Brooke at all, because, you know, good on her for putting in that work, regardless. Yeah. Even if she knew it was for nothing, at least she did it. And just to say she did it.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know what? Who knows? She can go elsewhere. There's a T-shirt company that just got a TV deal, so who knows, right? Yeah, I think Vince. I'm going to say Vince probably put her in there as a matter of convenience.
Yeah,
just you know, because we need a new face in the Money in the Bank match, pal.
Yeah.
So let's get that big girl that flexes and flips when she comes out. What's her name? Dana. Yeah, Dana. Get her big ass out there. You know what I mean? Just because Nia Jax is sitting at home right now, and you know, I hope she gets better. But
right.
So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. But you know, I hope she goes in and then maybe she'll show us something, because that's the thing with Dana Brooke. She's good, but she hasn't had her moment yet. And who knows? Maybe tonight's it, and maybe tonight Vince will be like, oh, maybe there's something in her, so to speak, and maybe who knows? Maybe she'll walk out with the damn thing tonight. We'll see.
Who knows? Definitely. But you guys will be listening to this podcast on Wednesday morning, on your morning drive to work, on your morning drive to take the kids to school, or whatever that you do. If you're in traffic, hey, put us in your ears. Bluetooth us in. Check this out. But we are recording this on Sunday, and yes, tonight is Money in the Bank, where Dana Brooke will be participating in the Money in the Bank ladder match. So definitely something interesting to check out. Now I'm going to move it to my man Albert here. What are you thinking about Dana Brooke and her hard work? From what I'm reading here, from what I'm understanding here, her hard work in the Performance Center and being there to help set up with the ring, being the first one there, last one to leave, and no progression for her in the last 3 years. Albert?
So my opinion is a little bit is like this. All right. So I respect Dana Brooke a lot more. I never realized she was putting in this much work, and for me, that's a big deal. And for someone who's been very underutilized throughout her WWE career, whether or not I'm a fan of hers or not, because I was never the biggest Dana Brooke fan from her time in NXT. I always, I was never, I didn't understand the idea where they were trying to push her more towards the forefront, where Emma was there and she was, a great worker and a great talent. So that kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. But that's not Dana Brooke's fault. It just happens to be that, that they saw something in her more than they saw something in Emma. I'll never get it, but that was the case. Yeah. But my thing is that I look back on my YouTube channel, the Slam Sessions Network. I did a point counterpoint with a buddy of mine, Dave, about the Sasha Banks situation, where Sasha's been complaining about, not getting enough opportunity. Meanwhile, Sasha's been a 4-time women's champion, the first ever women's tag team champion. She's, was the Iron Woman in the Royal Rumble. She's got a lot of accolades next to her name. Dana Brooke has none of these. Yet instead of complaining, she's busting her ass and working harder and doing more. So you know what? For that, I have a lot of respect for Dana Brooke, and I hope that she gets more opportunity in the future, because if somebody wants it that bad and they're showing it that bad, give them the chance.
Yeah. I agree. That was wonderfully said. Bro. I mean, I want to see her get some more opportunity. For me myself, I can't think off the top of my head like a huge botch that I've seen her do or something like that. And yes, there's still something there that needs to be molded, but I think that some opportunity should have been given. And I'm going to throw it over to my man Andre. Dana Brooke, where are you at on these rumors, bro?
So this is a situation where, I ended up having like a complete change of heart when it comes to Dana Brooke, because when she first started out, it seemed like they just kind of like threw her to the wolves while she was still green, like putting her with Charlotte, trying to be like her quasi Arn Anderson. And it wasn't working. She was pretty much like a laughing stock for a bit. And then once they broke them off, then she kind of like got lost in the shuffle. Like sometimes she would be like an enhancement talent for the women, and other times, they put her with Titus O'Neil. And you didn't know what side of the fence she swung. If she was a face one week, a heel next week. It seemed like nobody really had an idea what to do with her, and that was frustrating me as a fan, because I'm like, well, there's so many other people that could have TV time. Just send her back to NXT and let her get trained. So to read this article and to see that she is trying to get better in the ring and she's putting in the time and the work into it, I go back to exactly what Albert had said, like comparing her to somebody like a Sasha Banks, who is constantly complaining about her spot despite all of her accomplishments in the last couple of years. I'd rather see the person that really wants to be there and get better, as opposed to the other person that clearly, they feel like they're self-entitled. And that's happening not just with Sasha, but a lot of guys in the back who clearly are just, complacent in their spot. So I want to see more people like Dana work hard, get better, and be rewarded. But it seems like Vince doesn't play it like that.
I agree, man. I agree. That's just not how it goes down with him. And it's what it is, in my opinion, is, once again, I don't know if it's because I went to college for management and that's just when I work a management job, but for me, it's management. It's the management's mindset. If you see this young lady busting her ass to try to get better, to say, hey, I'm taking anything that you are giving me. I mean, they had her playing a doctor with the Good Brothers on some weird promos that were odd. I remember that, and I was like, man, even that, she's trying to own that. And then she was like, I don't know, what was she, the secretary for Titus's little thing he had going on, and then she tried to own that. And I'm just like, anything that this woman is being thrown, she's trying to own it. And I respect that. I appreciate that. I mean, even when she cuts a promo lately, I can kind of tell that she's kind of got the bug. Like, she's got the bug. Like, I can hear the sincerity in her promos that she really wants to come up and do this. Like, I'm starting to believe her now, because I mean, if you're busting your ass that much in the last 3 years in the Performance Center, setting up the ring, whatever it may be, you're trying to understand the business from the very, very basics of it. Hey, I believe your words. So definitely, we gotta, one thing that I believe WWE needs to do is breathe some new life in the women's division, which it's kind of feeling like it's falling down again, but pick it back up and give Dana Brooke some opportunities. So that's what I think about that. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about, fellas, This one is, man, I think this can be interpreted a lot of different ways, especially in today's society where people are triggered and offended and things like that. I think this could definitely be taken the wrong way. So the thing that I wanted to touch on here was Andrade.
Yeah.
Apparently, Andrade went into Vince's office. These are all rumors, ladies and gentlemen. I want you guys to know this. We are not reporting facts here. We are going off speculation. But apparently, Andrade went into Vince's office and asked for a legit push. Vince looked at him and said, "Learn some English and get back to me." Andrade spoke some English last week, and he's been taking English classes. I'm going to start this off with Michael. Michael, what do you think about Vince telling Andrade to go learn English?
Well, first off, before we get it, because man, this is a deep subject. The source on this, I do believe, I'm not sure if it was stated, is a writer or a former writer for WWE. Correct?
Yes.
What was who was bringing out all these points that we're discussing here today? I'd be lying if I said it didn't surprise me.
Right.
I mean, there's also, I'm not sure, do not quote me on as far as the validity of this, but I've also heard that the reason why Nakamura was out there cutting promos and whatnot is because Vince found it funny. That he's back there in gorilla laughing. I don't know. That's speculation. I know that's a really bold thing to say. But it's just, it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. I mean, that where there's smoke, there's fire, so to speak, and there's a lot of stories out there like that. But again, as we've said, this is all speculation. But good on Andrade for doing what he feels like he has to do. Is it bad that he has to do it? Yeah, and it really doesn't make sense because why wouldn't they want a Hispanic star? I mean, they had Eddie Guerrero. You know what I mean? And maybe, and then you got to think about the context of this as well. Mm-hmm. Let's think about, let's not be quick to get offended like a lot of people are in 2019.
Right.
Maybe, let's say Vince said, maybe you should learn English because that way you can get over as far as your Hispanic crowd and with the English crowd because you're going to be able to communicate with both sides.
Yep.
Maybe he said it as a suggestion, not as a, hey, you're not from around here. You're on this side of the wall. You better learn our words. You know what I mean? It's not, maybe he didn't mean it like that. So I don't want to try to be like, ooh, that's what he meant. Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at on it. I'm not like, ooh, like he said it to be a dick. Yeah. Maybe he said it as a suggestion and like, this could take you to the next level.
Yeah.
So to speak.
I like what you said there. I think that makes sense. That's what we need to do. We, in my opinion, let's not quick to trigger. Let's try to understand. I'm gonna go ahead and throw it to my man Albert. Where are you at on Vince telling Andrade that he needs to learn some English and get back to him?
So here's my perspective. We have, Michael brought up, a great name, Eddie Guerrero. In the past, WWE has, always tried to bring out that big Latin star. Yeah. It was Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, Alberto Del Rio. These were guys that they tried to parade out there and say, look, we know we have a very large Hispanic audience. Let's, give them their star. Bruce Pritchard said something about Eddie Guerrero that I think speaks volumes. He said that Eddie Guerrero just isn't a big Latino star. He is a big star. Yeah. And I feel the same way about Andrade. The guy has it. He's great in the ring. Yep. I think Zelina Vega does excellent for him on the mic, which is something that that a lot of people aren't even realizing right now. Everybody's like, so concerned about, Andrade needs to learn English. Well, they have someone out there with him right now in Zelina Vega who's cutting most of his promos. The thing is that Andrade isn't the great Khali or, Mantor, a big giant who he doesn't need to speak for himself because he can go in there and just beat you up and that's it. Andrade is a skilled technician. Yep. He needs to be, he needs to have some gravity to his character to make you want to feel something towards him. And having Zelina talk for him is good to a point. But you want to hear what Andrade has to say. Yeah. And if Andrade is going to connect with everybody, and not just a Hispanic audience, but an American audience as well, I think it serves him well to learn English. Do I think that it's fair in a sense that Vince is sitting there and saying, hey, you need to learn English in order to get over? Maybe not so. But what I think is really funny is that, when I was on the show the first time, me and you, Con, we talked about Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
And we talked about how people talked about how negative they were because, Roman Reigns can't cut a promo. But it's okay that Roman Reigns can't cut a promo. He shouldn't be a main eventer. But it's BS that Vince told Andrade to learn English so he can cut a promo. Don't you see that there's a little bit of, a skew in judgment there on either side? I mean, one doesn't make sense without the other.
Yep. I agree. Hey, you just brought up logic there, and I think that we all know, and I'm sorry, and me and Michael do this all the time, and we haven't lost listeners, we've gained listeners when we say sometimes the common wrestling fan is not logical at all. They just want things to go their way, and everything else doesn't matter, and we see it a lot. So definitely, if we're gonna give Roman Reigns hell, and Vince is just saying. In fact, let me save that. Let me save my thoughts on that because we're gonna go to my man Andre.
Yeah, so I definitely feel like Andrade is a total package. He's got a look, he's got a personality that I feel works. But when talking about for him to learn English in order to get that big push, I really feel like it depends on what kind of push would he actually be getting. Yeah. Because if you're going to continue the course of him being a heel, I mean, why not just keep Zelina Vega there to keep continuing to be his mouthpiece? Because, look, you got guys like Yokozuna who only said one word, and that was bonsai. And he had Mr. Fuji and Jim Cornette speaking for him, and he was, pushed as the big monster heel for, a good 2 or 3 years. Yeah. And even Andre the Giant, as much of a legend as he was, can anybody really remember an Andre the Giant promo until he got with Bobby Heenan, and that really elevated him as the evil force against Hulk Hogan? I mean, I know I might be talking about big guys here, but I feel like if you're going to have Andrade be somebody who speaks English, then just turn him face, and then he can connect with the crowd. But if you're going to have him continue to be a top heel and get that push, then maybe he could say less and just be a total badass and let Zelina do the work. I mean, hell, you look at somebody like Lashley, who definitely cannot cut a promo with that voice of his. And even though I'm not the biggest Lilo Rush fan in the world, it certainly helped to have that mouthpiece to pump him up as a heel without having him speak a lick of anything. Yeah. So I feel like, if the guy can't talk, even if he can't speak in a good promo heelish kind of way, then keep the manager there. I feel like it's a lost art.
I agree absolutely. Manager, there is a place in professional wrestling for managers. I will say it again, there is a place in professional wrestling in 2019 for managers. Absolutely. That is something that needs to be brought back and something that needs to be utilized to its strengths. As far as Andrade goes, in my opinion, I read that and I guess I wasn't quick to trigger because the first thing that I thought, the way that Vince McMahon thinks, that I think that he thinks, is, okay, I'll give you a push, but you have to learn English. He's basically saying, I know that you got something, I know that you got it, but in order for you to get it, you have to do this. And in my opinion, I think Vince telling him, you need to learn English, it only helps Andrade. It helps Andrade grow his personal brand. When he's done with the WWE, whenever that happens, if he doesn't stay for 20, 30 years like very few do, he will have that market. He will be able to do work in the United States and there's just so many possibilities for him if he decides to go ahead and learn English. He can do English, some of the English commercials that they do on the USA Network. They have with Snickers and whatever little deals they have with where they show their superstars on the commercials. But definitely it will help his marketability. So I guess that didn't bother me so much. I think that learning English only helps Andrade. But one thing that doesn't help the show as a whole, Raw and SmackDown, that is the stale, same production value that we've seen for years and years and years, and it's old. I'm personally tired of it. And the reason that I bring that up, gentlemen, is because one of the other things that was emphasized was apparently the entire creative team has pitched to have Raw and SmackDown look completely different, with different production, a different way of shooting things, and McMahon shoots it down. Now, personally, this triggers me. I'll be honest, this triggers me. But we're going to start with my man, Michael. Go ahead. How do you feel about this?
Well, before I comment on that, I got to say, we've already capped out on this episode. We've got a Mantar name drop. We're not going to get any better at this point. Everything that we do from this point forward is just a bonus. So good on that. We could close down right now and we'd be great. Anyway, back on that, yeah, the production of WWE is just so stale. They don't. First off, when they took away Pyro, I'm like, okay, you guys are trying to save money. I get it.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Maybe save it for your big four shows or whatever. Yeah. Right on. I compromise with that. But then it's the camera shots, man. Who is the epileptic? No, and I mean no offense to epileptics out there, but my God. The quick camera changes, like every time somebody's throwing a punch, and moving the camera up and down and up and down, and it takes away from the work that the talent is doing in the ring, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And as a talent, it would piss me off. And then to piss you off even more, you got the talent in the ring having a match. They may not have a reason why they're in there, but they're in there doing their thing. And then all of a sudden, they're in the small box, and all of a sudden, they're trying to sell you a sandwich right there on the TV. Or they're going to come in and do a promo of another talent.
Yeah.
Which is even worse, meaning that match don't mean shit.
Yep.
What you're out there doing means nothing. Do not look at this over here right now. You need to look at this over here.
Yep.
Can you imagine if they did that to, say, Steve Austin or The Rock or any talent back then?
Yeah.
Back in the Attitude Era days. That's shit. I would be pissed, right? Because even if you are that filler talent, so to speak, and you're just there to fill time, you're out there busting your ass trying to look good, trying to get noticed, right?
Yep, I agree with that. And just one small point that I want to add to that, and of course I'll let you continue just to add on to that conversation, is I feel like with a 3-hour show, if there's promos that need to be cut, when somebody's having a match or something like that, you have 3 hours, you can't work that in somewhere. But I'm sorry, continue.
Exactly. That's a good point as far as the pacing. It's and I'm sure we'll get into this as well. It's tough to write that much content. I couldn't imagine, writing that much content every single week to cover that many people, which probably explains why they have multiple 8-person tag matches, just to get everybody, so everybody can come in and get their shit in, so to speak.
Yep.
But yeah, back to the production thing. Yeah, it's bad, and that's what I hope that AEW brings that's different. And I think AEW knows that, and they will bring something different. It's about change, and that's what we're all. I assume everybody here. I'm not sure where the other fellows here stand as far as AEW goes, but I assume that they're hopeful as well. If anything, maybe they're not on the AEW side, but maybe AEW will prompt WWE to change and become better.
Yeah.
Just like WCW did at one point in time, when WCW, with all due respect, was kind of fucking them up back in the day.
Yeah, they were. For a little bit they were. That's the truth.
And let's face it, just to build a little bit of hype, that first shot is going to be fired next week. So I'm kind of excited to see how that goes and how WWE is eventually going to respond to all this. But back to the original point about the production, yes, a reset button needs to be hit, because it's just stale. It's bad, and it's hard. At points it's hard to watch.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I agree, man. It's just the same old production over and over again, and it really is even if you are doing something different on the show, in my opinion, it's hard to get invested because you're seeing, I mean, it doesn't look different. Like, it's not sucking me in, and that's going to have me throw it over to my man, Albert. Where are you at on creative pitching changes to production and Vince shooting it down?
So my big issue here with this whole entire thing is the idea that we're looking at this as two separate shows. It's Monday Night Raw. It's Tuesday Night SmackDown. They're going to move the show when they move over to Fox. Back in the day when they split the brands and they made two different shows, they were aesthetically two different shows. They had the SmackDown big giant fist that broke out. You knew what was SmackDown, you knew what was Raw, and it didn't matter. It was just because the lighting was red and the lighting was blue. These are two, those are just small things that they're doing that isn't making enough change. Yeah. I think the reason why the brand split doesn't work right now is because no one cares about the brand split. I mean, we're throwing different talents onto different shows, which is a horrible thing to do for these guys, because if they're trying to get a push onto one show, it's not fair that guys like AJ Styles and Roman Reigns are taking main event spots away from these guys on both shows. If we want to push more guys, we have to make the brand split a true brand split. It's got to be two separate, complete brands. There can't be any run between on both of them. As opposed to the occasional thing. If we're going to do something like a WrestleMania match where they used to do the Battle of the Brands kind of a thing, I'm okay with that. Yeah. But as far as production, you got to keep these, you got to make things different. You have to make everything completely separate. You have to make them, the shows different. You have to make the production value different. You have to make the way things are shot different. And that's the right thing to do. This creative team is sitting there and they're looking at this and they're talking about, hey, look, let's try to differentiate ourselves. And Vince is like, no, we're going to keep everything the same. I don't see where that makes any sense. I find myself, I really thought that there was going to be a lot of points where I was going to agree with Vince a little bit, but I'm finding myself, it's really hard, as you're laying this stuff out and we're talking about this, to agree with what he's saying.
Right. No, and I understand. Listen, I understand exactly what you're saying, and I know, listen, I want to make it clear to everybody here, I don't think there is, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's a true WWE hater that is in this round table right now. I know I don't hate the WWE. I'm just tired. I'm just so tired, gentlemen, of just same, the production over and over again. It doesn't feel new. It doesn't feel fresh. And then creative comes and says, hey, people are calling for something new, and he just says no. Andre, where are you at on that, brother?
So I want to go back to more of the production side of it, because I want to kind of take it back to 1993 when Raw first started. Okay. Because at that time, if you were, like, for me, I started watching wrestling by watching Superstars on Channel 5 here in New York on a Saturday morning. And those shows on Saturdays and Sundays, like Wrestling Challenge, that stuff was more kid-friendly because it was just designed to have the enhancement talents put over virtually anybody that was considered a main star on the main roster. And then when you would have Monday Night Raw, it would always be more special because there was more spontaneity. And I'm not necessarily talking about like Attitude Era Raw, but I'm talking about like 1993, 1994, when something like Bret Hart versus 1-2-3 Kid would be like this huge type of main event match that you would think would be pay-per-view caliber, and you're getting it on free TV. Yeah. And now what I think has happened here is, now it's just there's no spontaneity with these shows. Every now and then something kind of cool happens, but 9 times out of 10, I'm not feeling the tensions between two wrestlers feuding with one another. No matter how much they're like trying to go after each other's titles and whatnot. And then when you look at trying to, say like we want Raw to be different from SmackDown. Well, the only difference I see these days is when SmackDown will still show the match while the commercial's going in the box on the right, which I kind of liked in the beginning. But other than that, it becomes this freaking chore to sit through primarily Raw because, you're having to sit through 3 hours of a lot of talking, a lot of video packaging. And then, of course, the promos really piss me off because half the time these guys are not even looking into the camera and like talking against their opponent. They're like looking off screen. And that takes away something. That takes away this level of intensity and suspension of disbelief as a fan to watch those feuds go on. And I think that little things like that it makes the product stale. And I totally hate when somebody would cut a promo and then they cut back to the crowd while it's on the Tron. I still don't get what the deal is with that, but it's just like one of those many things that after a while, you're just ready to shut it off before the main event starts, and then you never even invested in the main event.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, it's hard to invest in the main event because, for me, some of the main events are, first off, they're not something that I'm dying to see. It's not something that I'm dying to see, and then it takes me 3 hours to get there. So, I mean, and they're not doing anything throughout the night to keep me into it and keep me invested. It's easy to forget. I mean, with so much things that happen in a 3-hour show, I remember back in the day when they were doing a main event segment and you would have updates on it, like almost maybe every 30 minutes of something that Austin was doing in backstage or something that Rock was doing backstage or something, and they just kept with it. They kept with it and led you up to the main event. And I remember those type segments always kept me for the whole show, and I just realized that they don't really do that much anymore, and it's really annoying. And for me, being a lifelong fan, I mean, I've always watched and won the audience, because this is the social media era where everybody has a voice. Not everybody likes it, not everybody agrees with it, but the general public have their say-so on things through social media. So when we're clowning something or memeing it or something like that, I mean, look at the Sonic situation. Look at the Sonic the Hedgehog thing. They changed on that. They changed on that because of the social media outcry. That's my point. But we're saying, Vince, we want better production. We want something different. People are hearing it. And you're not giving it to us. Man, that's just frustrating. It really, really is. He's just a stubborn man from what I understand. And he's come so far and had such great success. So I understand why he's a mule about so many things. But can you come off? I mean, you don't have to die on every hill, bro. Can't you just do something, switch it up, bro. Switch it up. And as far as talking about things such as the audience and us being heard, things that are being said, I don't know if you guys really know this, but recently I have seen that the word influencer was put into the dictionary. Have you guys seen this as fellow podcasters? Have you guys seen that influencer is now an official word?
Yeah, I have seen that actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
I've heard that's a thing.
Yes. And that is what we do, gentlemen. We are influencers. And that brings me to my next point. My next point is this, is that there are several writers and talent, from what I understand here, people backstage, they listen to a lot of different podcasts. And I wanted to dig deeper in this rabbit hole because it has something to do with us. It has something to do with me. It has something to do with Michael. It has something to do with Albert, and it has something to do with Andre. And that is the fact that people on the writing staff and others listen to podcasts and hear fans, us, Michael, us, Albert, us, Andre. They hear fans bashing them, and it breaks their heart. And I guess none of that matters. And the reason that I say that I bring this up is because, hey, we are in a little business here of podcasting. Everybody on this show right now podcast. So we're hearing that the writing staff are listening to, maybe not specifically us, but definitely others in the podcasting world coming from a fan's perspective like we do, and they agree with it, and it breaks their heart, but there's nothing that they can do. Michael, where are you at on that as a podcaster and as a fan?
Well, I mean, it's tough to hear because I can't imagine. Imagine being a writer for Vince McMahon. Imagine sitting with, the group of, people, your coworkers. You write what you feel is a great show. Is it good enough to hand to Vince McMahon? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. Are you positive? Because he yells a lot. He may throw things. Yes. Yes. Give it to him. They go give it to him just for him to tear it up, shit all over it, whatever he does, and then write a new show himself a half hour or an hour before they go green, before they go live. Week after week after week of that. And then because you're like, hey, maybe we need to listen to the universe, right? Because that's what we're here for. So they download the podcast, and then 9 times out of 10, it's a podcast. It's let's shit on WWE. Let's come up with whatever way we can say ourselves to, however we can muster up and say the WWE sucks. And I'm glad that nobody here is doing that, because again, that's not how we roll. We always say that at In Your House podcast, and I'm sure, Albert and Andre's the same way on their stuff. They if they think something sucks, they convey why. They're not just saying that it sucks just to say it sucks. And you see a lot of that out there. But imagine hearing that hey, the job you work hard at, the job you work diligently, hour after hour after hour for, you just hear that you suck at it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's got to be awful. So and then as a fan, of course, it sucks too, because what great ideas have been left on the table? Yeah. What great ideas have been thrown away? Yep. I'm sure there's been talent that's approached the writers like it should be, and be like, hey, this is the idea that I have helped. Bray Wyatt did it, which I think we're going to get to all of that at some point, so I don't want to step on that, because I'm probably going to have a lot to say about that. Mm-hmm. Okay. But yeah, it's frustrating as a fan, because again, continuity. There's no continuity there. Yeah. They just, it's hot cold booking. Again, the Dana Brooke thing is oh, let's push her for a little bit, then she's off TV. Some people have their reasons, and and that's different circumstances. But again, you see it all the time. Vince gives up on people just when they're possibly just starting to get hot, and then they take their heat away if it's a heel, or again, now you got baby faces getting heat. It's weird. There's this, and again, it's a continuity thing that pisses me off. And I watch a lot of different kind of TV shows and everything, and sometimes, again, I'm not trying to sound egotistical when I say this, but let's face it, how many times have you watched WWE? And again, I'm a fan of pro wrestling, including WWE, but how many times have you had your intelligence insulted?
So many.
Doesn't it suck?
Yeah.
Doesn't it suck? How many times have you sat and watched WWE, again, as a fan? And yes, there's stuff that you like, but then there's sometimes you're like, oh, come on, fuck you for that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just stupid. Why would you do that? And then the talent's got to try to sell it as if it's a great idea. And I'm looking at the revival here.
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
Right. And we'll get to that shit show later. But it's bad. Bad.
I agree, man. I agree. I mean, I can't imagine just everything that those writers have to go through. I'm going to throw it over to my man Albert. Where are you at on the writing staff, listening to fan podcasts like yourself, like myself, and hearing what we're saying, and there's nothing that they can do? Where are you at on that, my man?
My thing is that I've always actually wanted to be a writer for the WWE. That's actually been my goal in life. I have an English degree from John Jay College. My goal has always been that I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to either work in Hollywood or in the WWE. Yeah. That's it. Hearing these reports discourages me so much from wanting to do that, because, and this is the big thing. A lot of people talk about the fact that, the WWE just, they don't want to change. They're just going to do whatever they want. It doesn't make a difference. They're just going to, and the writers all suck because they're not coming up with, different ideas, and they're hiring soap opera writers, and they're doing this and they're doing that. And now we're hearing that, and again, this is all, you have to remember, this report was put out by a writer. So maybe this is one writer who feels very much discouraged by the fact that a bunch of his stuff was shot down by Vince. Maybe that's not always the case. And maybe we're wrong. Maybe that's not, the case across the board. But on the other hand, aren't we seeing that this is something that we're looking at more often than not, we're hearing things that ex-writers leave the WWE. They do an interview with somebody and they have the same opinion. Hey, we came up with this idea, and they shot down all of these, and they went with this one. And at the last minute, Vince rewrote this thing, and this was supposed to happen, but it didn't happen. So I'm trying to find a way to make it so that maybe it's not true, but it damn sure seems true. So as far as I'm concerned, if these writers are putting together this big show and they're collecting this big paycheck, but none of their work is on screen, is it really worth it? Because a lot of people can sit there and say, hey, you can complain, but I know you're probably making a really good amount of money and you're probably doing a really good, doing really good work. And if it doesn't get there, who cares? You're still getting the paycheck. But as a writer, and Andre can really speak to this a little bit more too, because Andre has, has directed and written a lot of independent films and movies. You want to see your vision out there. And if you're a writer and you're looking at that and you're like, this isn't my vision, this is just somebody else's vision and my name's attached to it somehow, which, by the way, it's not. We always forget that the WWE has all this big stable of writers, and we don't know any of their names. It's not like they're credited at the end of a television show. No. That's the way they do it there. It's just WWE in and WWE out. That's it. No credits. So these guys aren't getting credit for even the stuff that they are doing. So yeah, if I were them, I'd be ridiculously frustrated.
Oh, man, I agree there. And I definitely want to throw this one over to Andre and with everything that he's done, get his opinions on this. Andre, where are you at, brother?
Yeah, so, as Albert mentioned, I do make films, and I am also a screenwriter myself on the independent side of things. I would relate this, compare and contrast with, say, with Marvel Studios and the way that they've approached their filmmaking process. Mm-hmm. Because look at the way that they used to have Spider-Man, X-Men, and some of the other Marvel characters when their movies were being made by other studios, and they had to abide by whatever the studio executives wanted. So if they thought that certain things couldn't translate to the screen, they would make all kinds of changes that would make the comic book fans go crazy. And 9 times out of 10, those movies would end up being critically panned, even if they made money or not. But once you had Kevin Feige create Marvel Studios, then you had a situation where you have a bunch of comic book writers as well as people that are in the film industry who sit down and they map out an actual long-term 5 years, 10 years plan of where every character is going to go. And that way, if a certain film succeeds and let's say a character in it gets the audience's attention, then they're like, okay, we could probably expand on that and get that character their own movie and not do anything to sway away from their long-term planning. Now, take this with WWE, and you have a situation right now where I feel like when you came out of WrestleMania, the hardcore wrestling fans got so much of what they wanted. You look at every title holder from Seth Rollins to Kofi Kingston to, Ryder and Hawkins. A lot of the internet favorites are holding the current titles. And as a fan, that's great, to finally see these guys who've worked as hard as they have to finally get that push. But the problem is, and this has been going on for years now, it seems like Vince McMahon only concentrates on the 1 or 2 guys in the main event who get the long-term, year-long booking towards WrestleMania, and then they kind of run out of steam after that. And if you see right now, there was all that steam going into Mania with Ronda and Becky and Charlotte, and even the Daniel Bryan-Kofi Kingston feud. Now these guys are champions, and, even if the feuds currently are intriguing, like pushing Lacey Evans or pushing Kevin Owens back into a heel, it's just the way they're booking it, there's not a lot of investment in there, and it's just the stale, same old bullshit, and looking at tonight's Money in the Bank, on paper, the card looks great, but the way they've booked up to this point, there's just that lack of investment, and it seems like they're not going to get that steam again until Royal Rumble. And that's something that has to change too, which is you have all these other pay-per-views. Make them important. Make SummerSlam and Survivor Series important, not just always wait for that one big moment every year because it's going to attract the mainstream fans. So that's my thought on it. I feel like they have to like look at every other situation, not just who's going to be in the Universal title match.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you there. They have to. We need to better book the card. The card needs better booked, and I can't imagine being a writer there having to listen to us. I mean, if I think what we do here, everybody on this show right now does, is we give you a strong opinion. We talk it out. I listen to a lot of fan podcasts just because I wanna hear what other cats are talking about too. I want to hear what's hot, and so many of the ones that I listen to, they're just like, well, this is stupid, I just don't get it, and blah blah. And it's just like, that's why it's not working for you. You know what I mean? Because it's just you have to come from. You have to be logical and make sense. Make your argument make sense. And I would even think now, if the writers listen to what I'm saying, Michael's saying, Albert is saying, Andre is saying, this would probably break their heart even worse, because we're not talking out of anger or anything like that. We're talking from a logical standpoint that what's being done is not good, and it's not, and the reason why, once again, for me, it all goes full circle again back to management. You're changing the show hours before it even comes on the air, and it's just terrible. I mean, even the wild card rule, which we'll get to, it was just what is that? Why? You just came up with it off the cuff, and now we don't know what it is. Vince doesn't know what it is. Nobody knows what it is, and it's just terrible. So I hate it for the writers. I hate that they have to listen to people like us complain about their job, but as artists, it sucks even worse, because they're not, once again, a point already made by Albert is that they're not seeing their vision come to life. And yeah, they're getting a paycheck, and that's great, but man, hey man, money's not everything. At least it's not to me. So I'm an artist as well, and I want to hear, my stuff get out there. So definitely, that's where I'm at with that. And as far as artists goes and people that I think are really good at what they do, the report here, the stuff with the revival, the embarrassment of the revival, the things going on with the revival and the Usos, the shaving of the back, the Usi hot segment, which in my not so humble opinion is front runner for worst segment of the year in 2019. Just terrible, nonsensical storylines that don't make any sense today, not in this modern age of wrestling. It's just corny to me. It's just corny. Apparently, those segments that we've been seeing with the revival and the Usos, the only reason they're being done, and I do feel like it is probably some out of spite, if these reports are true. Once again, if these reports are true, I feel like it's out of spite of the revival. But Vince is doing it because he thinks that it is funny. Michael, where are you at with the situation with Vince's thoughts on these segments going on between the revival and the Usos?
Of course Vince thinks it's funny. Vince has always thought stuff like that's funny.
Yeah.
Think about the material that we've seen thrown at us on WWE programming previously. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've had poop jokes, we've had fart jokes. I mean, we got Kevin Owens getting pushed over in like a little porta potty thing. You know what I mean? Like, Vince loves that stuff. Yeah. There's numerous stories about that. So I mean, and let's face it, I think there's a lot of stuff that's done on WWE programming that's done to entertain him. Yeah. Because Vince don't watch, from what I've heard from other talent that's done like interviews and stuff and talked about Vince. Vince doesn't watch a lot of stuff outside of WWE. Like, he's like, when you hear In the Bubble, that's Vince. Yeah. Yeah. So, that's again, it's not surprising to me at all. Yeah. And Vince is just funny like that. It's weird. Vince is a weird cat.
He is a weird cat.
But but I feel bad for the Revival because I mean, just like I said on, not to repeat myself, from the previous time that we conversed about this whole situation. Again, imagine being in that spot and being told you have to do that.
Yeah.
And then they went out and did it, and I feel like again they did as best they possibly could given the pure tripe that they were given to work with.
Yeah.
But again, it's bad, and I do think there's a part of it that's done out of pettiness as well because they've kind of expressed disinterest in being there.
Yeah.
And again, there's an alternative now. I can't keep reiterating that. I know they haven't proven themselves yet, and you say, "Oh, what's their best? Watch AEW's best match of 2019." They haven't had it yet, but you know what? It just may happen. But again, there's an alternative, and WWE knows that, and I'm not sure if this is covered in the material that we're conversing about here today, but the fact that they're keeping talent there by paying them money, but not even putting them on TV. They're like, here, we'll give you $500,000 a year. Just don't go anywhere. You're just not going anywhere. We may not do anything with you, but you're just not going anywhere because we don't see you make yourself. Unless if we don't make you, nobody's going to make you.
Yeah, just icing the talent.
And that's dark, man.
Yeah.
That like if you ask me as a talent, I love the wrestling business, and it's kind of crazy with what we got going on here because we're, regardless how you feel about it, we're a part of it, albeit a minute part of it, but we're a part of it. We're a voice in it.
Yeah.
And we don't know who might be listening. As we've said, writers are listening to us. They can be listening to us when we drop this. We don't know.
Yep.
So, I mean, but yeah, we're a part of it, but it's a really weird, it's a dark business too.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's kind of where I'm at, man. I really don't know. It's kind of hard to speak in absolutes and that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
I feel you, bro. I agree. I agree with you there. It is hard to speak in absolutes. We don't know. We don't really know. Once again, we don't know if these are facts. We're just going off of what these speculations are. But that's what we do here. I mean, we talk about this is the fun of professional wrestling is talking about the rumors. Now, these aren't the greatest rumors to talk about, but I mean, this is what we do. We provide content. We're all content providers. We are influencers, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw it over to my man Albert. Where are you at on this issue, bro? With the Usos and with the Revival and Vince thinking that it's funny to have them embarrass themselves weekly?
Here's what I hearken this back to. I hearken this back to the situation with Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks was, complaining and stuff about her spot. Now, all of a sudden, she's been removed from WWE television. Apparently, she walked in and said she wanted to quit. From what we understand, the Revival said that they didn't want to re-sign their contracts. And Vince said, "Oh, okay, you don't want to re-sign your contracts? That's great. Well, Dash, you are out for 4 months with a broken jaw, so we're going to extend your contract for 4 months now." And the thing is this. Everybody thinks that they have this opportunity now to go elsewhere. And Michael keeps bringing up the fact that AEW is a real thing. And that's true. It is. It's a real thing. We don't know where it's going to be. We don't know where it's going to end up. But it is real. And it could be an alternative for these people to go somewhere else. But do you think that, and I mean, the Revival situation is even worse. I mean, it's actually similar to the Sasha situation. Sasha complains. First ever women's tag team champion. She drops the belt, complains.
Yeah.
The Revival were even worse. They got they complained, they got the tag titles put on them, and they continue to complain. You got made the center of the Raw tag division. Obviously there was a plan to bring the Usos in, and that could have been the feud right now. And good for Hawkins and Ryder to get now on the other end because the Revival decided to complain so much, and I think that's why they took the titles off of them at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I think Vince is having a lot of fun with the Revival because the Revival don't want to be there. Yeah. And Bruce Pritchard says it all the time. If you don't want to be here, you can go. Now it's a bit of a different situation because they know that there is an alternative. And Vince, I don't know if it's Vince himself because I'm sure Vince doesn't know who Kazuchika Okada is. But I know that there's been reports out there saying that a lot of WWE doesn't want to release a lot of people with an upstanding side of potential because they don't want to have what happened to TNA happen to them, where Kazuchika Okada came to TNA, was a flop, went to New Japan, and became the biggest star, in Japan.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with that being said, they don't want to let a team like the Revival go because they know that if they do go, they'll be, they'll go to AEW and they'll have a huge feud. And it could be a resurgence of tag team wrestling. AEW is having their own issues now already with the pay-per-view, with their first pay-per-view that they're going to do. But with that being said, there's still going to be a viable alternative with a person who has a lot of money to put behind them. Mm-hmm. And if the Revival want to go there, Vince is not going to let the Revival go there looking like $1 million. They're going to be torn down and they're going to have to rebuild themselves in AEW. And that's what Vince is going to do. Is it fun for us watching? Probably not. But you know what? This isn't the first time Vince has done things to push his own agenda.
Hey, that's true. That's true. That's another side of the fence that I definitely see. As a competitor, I do see it from there as far as him wanting to tear them down and then they're having to do the work to build themselves back up. I mean, it was kind of done with Dean Ambrose as well a little bit when he was jobbing out here and there, and then he just kind of went out and yes, they gave him, of course, they respected Dean Ambrose enough to give him a little special or whatever, but and that was cool, but they didn't send him out looking like $1 million. So I do see that perspective. I'm gonna throw it over to my man Andre on this one. Where are you at on the Revival and the Usos situation currently?
So I have a little sympathy for the Revival because I feel like when they came in, they didn't know exactly what to do with those guys either. I mean, they were very well defined as a throwback to that old school Georgia South Championship Wrestling, NWA type of style of just kicking ass, not doing any high-flying stuff, just, knuckles and kicks. Yeah. And I just think that, for the longest time, they would be on TV for 1 week, then they'd be off for several weeks, and then they'd be brought back. Yeah. I can understand that frustration of them just, being totally underutilized. And then finally when they do, attempt to sign a new deal and they do get the tag team titles, they're still not satisfied. Because look at the time, what that tag team division was looking like. The New Day got bounced to SmackDown, and you had the B team, and nobody really gave a damn about the B team. Now you have the Viking Warrior Raiders or the Viking Experience. They're just throwing teams out there, and again, just not knowing what to do with these guys. And personally, for me, I'd be pushing a Revival after, the punch to Bret Hart's attacker at the Hall of Fame. For me, I would say, those guys would be $1 million right now. But instead, now they're just being treated as a joke, which they shouldn't be. And the other thing that's not really being said is this doesn't look good for the Usos either. No. Because the Usos are supposed to be badasses. They're supposed to be the Uso penitentiary, not going out there, doing pranks and Nickelodeon gags, and that just makes them look silly. So if it ends up falling on the ratings and they get the blame, it's not going to be their fault. It's going to be the guy on top that clearly is just taking these guys however way he wants, no matter how tough they may be, and making them into a joke. It's just not fair to the Usos as much as it's not fair to the Revival.
And I agree with you there, man. I agree with you there. And a lot of this, man, it feels like it's just a political attack, politics. The Revival does not want to be there, and Vince is, with his stroke, with his power, putting his thumb on their neck, and he can do that because he's Vince. So he's doing exactly what he's gonna do. There might be some spite in there, but also I do understand that they're not gonna. They've made it clear that they want to go. They have made it clear they want to go, and Vince is going to make sure that they have no steam behind them when they do leave. It's a tough thing to say, but it's facts. It's the truth. I mean, and that's what Vince is going to do, and he does not care. Now, does this hurt other aspects of the product? Yes, it does. It does, because he's not thinking about the live audience. He's not thinking about the television audience. He's thinking about himself and what he feels like he needs to do, and that's A, amuse himself by embarrassing these guys, and B, make sure that they do not look like a legitimate strong tag team when it is time for them to ride off into the sunset and go and sit out their 30, 60 days that they can't, no television clause, no compete clause, that is, and then they can show up wherever they decide to show up at. It stinks, but that's what Vince is going to do. He's not thinking about anybody else but himself, and I do expect that from Vince McMahon. That is exactly what I do expect from Vince McMahon, is for him to only think about what is best for him and what is best for himself. And it's crazy because I think a lot of us could agree here, and I feel like everybody here would agree that if Triple H were in charge of the product, we would see something completely different. And the reason that I bring up Triple H, guys, is because apparently from one of the things that was said here from this writer is that the most frustrated person in the back every single night is Triple H. He'll always take, especially the NXT guys, under his wing. It looks like he's consoling them. It looks so much like he was the most frustrated person in the building every single night. That's disturbing news, in my opinion. Michael, where are you at on that, bro?
Yeah, I couldn't imagine because, again, put yourself in Triple H's spot. First off, you have a formula that is, as far as on the WWE side of things, as close to getting it as they have, and that's NXT.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, every takeover that happens, we're all talking about it, and very rarely is it negative.
Yep.
Because they make talent. And
Yep.
just for that talent to be brought up and squandered is just, I'm sure, devastating for that talent. Because, I mean, think about it, because the talent's coming in hot, white hot at times. Hell, I mean, look at the, what do they call it? The Viking Raiders, Viking Experience, Viking whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, that team was, and are still badasses, right?
Yeah.
But, well, I mean, but the name thing, I mean, it cut the legs out right from underneath them.
Yep.
And again, now they're just another team. And then you think of Sanity.
Mm-hmm.
Sanity come up. Sanity was awesome. I liked them. I was like, oh, this team's going to be great. And then what? Nothing. Then they all got, Sanity got ran through by the Miz.
Oh, yep. Yep. They did.
Like, what? Like that's sanity. That's insanity, as it were.
Yeah.
But oh man. But yeah. And then just because I'm sure, like, you got talent going, what happened? And then what is Triple H supposed to tell them?
Yeah.
What does he say to them? So of course Triple H is going to go to try to stand up for him. At least going to try to talk to him, because he's got, at least, if anybody's got stroke to go up to Vince, it's going to be him.
Oh yeah.
And then just to get shot down too. No, whatever, pal, get out of here. I know what I'm doing, kid. You know, I know you do your NXT thing. I'll give you the money for it. We got that Saudi money. We got that blood money. Don't worry. You're going to have your NXT budget. You keep making people. You keep bringing them up. We just need new faces in here. That's all we need. We're not going to make stars. We don't need stars. And see, and that's what's biting them in their ass, is they're not making stars. And we touched on before, I mean, about, like, you know, they, you know, having Raw and SmackDown be different shows. And yes, that would be great. But what top stars could they have spearhead those shows?
Yep.
Because that's why they're doing this wild card thing right now. Because they need faces on there that's going to, you know, that Vince feels is a draw.
Lack of star power.
Exactly. I mean, other than like Roman Reigns and stuff like that, when's the last real legit star that they've made? They've squandered every potential talent that they have, and they have the most deep talent pool currently, with all due respect to the previous eras, at least in-ring wise and potentially promo wise, if they just let them go out and do their damn thing.
Yeah.
Which hopefully this Bray Wyatt thing is a lesson in that. But yeah, like, let them go out and do their thing, fly or fall. You know what I mean? Like, if they fail, then get them the hell off TV, because they don't belong there.
Yep.
And what do you got to lose? You're already losing people anyway in your ratings. You're pulling like $2 million if you're lucky.
Man.
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at on that subject.
No, I agree with you there. You made a lot of good points there. I'm going to throw it to my man Albert. Where are you at on the situation with Triple H being the most frustrated person every single night?
I can see where Triple H is coming from. It's difficult. You have a lot of these guys who you have formulated a great rapport with the hardcore wrestling audience, and you're trying to put them out on a national stage, and Vince looks at them and goes, nah. And that's been really what's going on. Guys like EC3, Bobby Roode, the Viking Experience getting their names changed 16 times. Guys like, until they found their footing, Xavier Woods, a guy like Rusev, Nakamura, Finn Balor. I mean, I can go on and on. These are guys who aren't getting, Balor maybe the only one you can say, hey, he won the Universal Championship. All right, we'll take that. But other than that, where are these other guys gone? Yeah. And if I'm Triple H, I'm frustrated because he's definitely looking at this and saying, hey, guys, you're here at NXT, and we're going to build you for the future. And then the future comes, and they're like, man, send me back, please. Send me back. Because that's where we're at. It's sad. But I have a little bit of I don't know. I have a difference of opinion with this whole, I can't wait for Triple H to take over. I can wait for Vince to be gone mentality. Sure. Because we're forgetting that the WWE is now a publicly traded company. Yeah. And a lot of changes that are being made, like the wild card rule, were in response, allegedly, to Fox saying, well, we want more star power on all these shows. Yeah. And now maybe they're thinking that Raw doesn't have enough because, they don't have Roman Reigns, and now maybe they're going to, think SmackDown has too much if Ronda Rousey comes back. The WWE is dropping stars, left and right. Guys asking for their releases and all this kind of stuff. That's not going to stop. Triple H taking over as being the head of everything isn't going to stop that from happening. If anything, the writers who we're talking about who were frustrated with their position, we can see the flaws in their abilities if they're not writing a 3-hour show as concise as we want them to. We're forgetting the fact that NXT is an hour a week. It's an easy formula to write. Yeah. We're going to make people miss our major stars because they're not going to be there every week. Johnny Gargano, Adam Cole aren't going to be on the show every single week. Yeah. But when they do get there, it's going to be exciting. And even if it's just a promo segment, we got to see the champion and the number one contender. But other than that, we get to see some star building. The WWE has to do every single one of those things all on the exact same night, and they can't let their major guy take off because they're on a major network. If their world champion isn't there, that could bottom out the ratings, and that could be why we're in the position that we're in right now because Brock Lesnar wasn't there for such a long period of time. Brock doesn't wrestle on television. Brock doesn't show up for television. We can't have, I can't think that the whole thing is going to be completely different when Triple H takes over because he still has all this board of directors to answer to. Yeah. I get his frustration. I understand that maybe he thinks he can do a lot better, but nobody else has ever been in the shoes that Vince McMahon has been in. And we forget that with all his shortcomings, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now or this podcast if it wasn't for Vince McMahon, changing his direction and, taking all the big stars of the 80s and putting them into the World Wrestling Federation and, birthing the Attitude Era and, admitting his flaws and his mistakes and making, the Attitude Era and the era that followed some of the most watched wrestling in the history of the world. That's who Vince is. Without Vince, we lose a lot of that magic. Yeah. So, Triple H could be frustrated. He might want to take over, and he might be trying to talk to Vince. But Vince is going to dig in his heels because he has a proven track record of doing the best out of anybody else in the United States, in the world, quite frankly, with promoting wrestling. I don't know where it goes from there when Triple H takes over and Vince is no longer there, but I can't expect that things are going to be a positive right away. There are a lot of positives with this product. Andre mentioned before, the champions coming out of WrestleMania were an internet wrestling fan's wet dream. Yep. And now, I have a friend who does a live stream on Monday nights during Raw, and we interact with fans, and there's usually 20 people in the room talking about how, there's nothing interesting going on. What do you mean? It's Seth Rollins versus AJ Styles. It's Kevin Owens versus Kofi Kingston. These are things that we should want to see. But fans are so desensitized by this product right now, and we're so negative on the product right now that there's no silver lining. Those are, AJ and Rollins in itself is a dream match.
Yep.
If Triple H was taken over, that might be the first match he promotes. But it's on TV right now and nobody cares.
Yep. Hey, that, I mean, so many great points that, I mean, I see exactly what you're saying. Nobody really knows what Vince McMahon really has to deal with. Nobody knows except for Vince McMahon and maybe a few very close people to him, but nobody really knows. It also is a publicly traded company, and that does create some different types of pressure. So I do understand that. I really do. Andre, where are you at on the frustration of Triple H to the current situation and the product of the WWE?
Well, again, it goes back to the idea of the lack of long-term investment, because you look at NXT, and this is like for the first time in decades where you've seen guys in the developmental system who are getting that national exposure, who are getting over with the fans and establishing themselves. And then the second that, they go onto the main roster, 9 times out of 10, you have Vince McMahon. And I also want to mention Kevin Dunn, their producer, who look at these guys, and they may be hot the second that they come in, and they got the big pop after Mania, but then the next thing you know, they either get jobbed out or they decide, well, this guy's too fat, this person can't speak English, and then they knock them down several pegs to where they become virtually irrelevant. And look, everybody has their spot when it comes to WWE. Not everybody's going to be in the main event, and I understand that. But when you look at people like Asuka and Nakamura, who are incredibly over, in spite of whatever shortcomings they may have had in promo ability, they can make it up in the ring and in personality. And within a year, those two in particular, among others, have seen their stock drop to the level of, like giving Asuka the title, but then becomes totally irrelevant because we're putting, Charlotte and Ronda and everybody at the top, or somebody like Nakamura who gets that Royal Rumble win and the WrestleMania match with AJ, and they turn him heel, and then after the feud's over, then he's just, like doing opening matches before pay-per-view. It's not fair to them. And I also, going back to the Vince issue, yes, he has a proven track record. Yes, he was able to turn business around with the Attitude Era when he had his back to the wall. But here's the thing. He is 73 years old. He is out of touch with the change in society, in the change in media. And sure, yeah, Fox is going to tell him what to do in terms of what they want to see SmackDown be and the kind of talents that they want on the show. But at the same time, because he's got his back to the wall in that sense, he's not coming up with anything innovative to make wrestling fans or even the general public be reinterested in the product again. And I've always said for the longest time, and this is one thing that I will hope that AEW will do, is we need new, young voices in the wrestling business. The same way that Paulie Dangerously was able to take ECW and turn that into like the Nirvana of wrestling in the 90s. Or even Bischoff with the way that he knew how to take WCW, take all those old guys from the 80s, but give them fresh new runs and, get this level of spontaneity that nobody had ever saw before, because there was really not enough internet back then to know what was going on in the back. You need somebody young and new that can challenge what's out there now and give fans something different. The Vince McMahon way, it's just, he's where his father was at in 1982 when that level of wrestling, the San Martinos and the Billy Grahams, were phasing out and people were hungry for something new, and he cashed in on MTV. And that was totally revolutionary at the time with the whole rock and wrestling connection. Yeah. You need something like that now, and nobody's stepping up for that, and I'm hoping AEW will.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. I'm hoping AEW steps up. I think that they will. I think there's a lot of cool things coming, and I think it's just a lot of it's complacency. For the WWE. And I can't imagine being in Vince's shoes or being in Triple H's shoes, kind of being the middle child here. He's between the main shows. He's between NXT and having to explain to these kids, hey, you know, if Vince don't see it, he don't see it. I mean, I don't know what else that you can really say as far as that goes. Now, I want to touch a little bit on the reports about Bray Wyatt, but the last full question that I have for you guys, or the last full thing that I want you guys to speak on, because we're running out of time here, is I'm seeing here another report saying is that the writer said is the money is good and it's a dream job for many writers, but it gets frustrating. The talent is very unhappy and people are trying to get out of their contracts. We know that. We all know that a lot of people are getting out of their contract. I'm also seeing it's such a toxic atmosphere, and it's all because of one person. I'm seeing here the person emphasizes the problem in WWE is not creator's fault, and Vince McMahon is the one person who deserves the blame. Vince wants suggestions from everyone, but it never gets on TV. 99 out of 100 times, you can come up with an idea for Vince, and it won't be used. I mean, just so much. Writers are, there's a writer on the brink of quitting. So many think that they're going to be fired, or they're thinking about quitting. Let's take away the WWE for a second. This is a hostile work environment, period, in my opinion. So, Michael, where are you at on all these reports about the lifestyle backstage, or the working style backstage, the work style backstage? What do you think about it?
Well, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting change, will bring one to the brink of insanity.
Yeah.
So it just sounds like a ridiculously toxic environment. If you're not on the right side of things, over with the right group of people, Vince's upper inner echelon, the upper circle, or inner circle, as it were, then, you aren't shit. You aren't nothing. And let's face it. I mean, it's let's call a spade here. All that talent, they're just toys to Vince. That's all they are, and it's kind of it's a broad stroke to paint, so to speak. But I mean, it's kind of how it is, man. And it's sad that because he treats people like that. Cause he's like, oh, I'm done, like playing with this. It's over. There's no value here, so let's set it aside. Right. And that's a person's livelihood, man. But then they're stuck there. That they can't leave. Yeah. So I mean. And then it's kind of boils down to the whole independent contractor thing, and how, again, I know nothing about business. I can't claim to know anything about it. I have no degrees. I know nothing about it. So I'm really speaking out of term here, and I don't want to be wrong. And anybody at me, feel free to correct me, guide me in the right direction. That's cool.
Sure.
But I don't see how WWE's been able to get away with that for this long.
Yeah.
And now, there's, at the very least, and I know we keep bringing AEW up here, but I mean, it needs to be said, at least in this point too, they're offering talent like coverage for their medical bills, stuff like that. And if anything, that sounds like a pretty green pasture on the other side of that fence, and that's going to lure a lot of talent just for that alone. Right. Not to mention, I hear that they're covering travel too. And I mean, they got that Tony Khan money, so I mean,
money, brother.
That's possible.
Oh yeah.
And if the travel schedule is not as rough as WWE is, again, that's yet another thing that's going to make a lot of talent go, huh. But then again, I mean, there's not a lot of room for everybody either, because then you're just going to have the same problem just on the other side, a major influx of talent, and then they're not going to have enough time to do anything with everybody.
Yep.
We don't know how much time they're going to have. As far as we know, they got one show a week.
Yep.
So, and that's probably going to be 2 hours. And they got a lot of people as it is. So, I mean, I don't know. I can't call where that's going to go. But yeah, man, it all just boils down to management. We keep saying it.
Yep.
Yep. It's just management. And Vince, as great as he is, as much as he's contributed, because we've said it multiple times, I think we've all said it at least once in one of these rounds that we've done here. Yeah. Without Vince, we wouldn't have anything. We wouldn't have this. We wouldn't have shit. So, and again, Vince isn't going anywhere. WWE is not going anywhere. If if AEW succeeds, when and if it does, or at least remains relevant, WWE is not going out of business or anything like that. Again, if anything, they're going to just keep on pushing, doing what they're doing until Vince either decides to step down on his own volition or, God forbid, something happens that causes him to.
Yeah.
And then we'll just kind of see how it goes. Yep. Either way, man, I just, want the best for all parties involved, and I want the talent to have a good place to work, because if you're working in a bad environment, that's going to affect your work. And if your work's affected, that's going to affect your show. And that affects us. And then we're just going to be having more stuff to bitch about, and then the cycle continues. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, it just never ends. So, yeah.
I agree with you, bro. Made a lot of good points there. Made a lot of good points. I'm going to throw it to my man, Albert. Final thoughts on everything that we just talked about as far as things, the toxic environment that may or may not have been caused by one Vince McMahon. Where are you at, Albert? Final thoughts.
So I think we're looking at AEW as a grass is greener on the other side sort of scenario here.
Yeah.
With this, Michael's 100% right. What we're talking about comes down to management. And managing a multi-billion-dollar company is not something that's very easy. Vince doesn't just have to deal with the idea of, angry wrestlers on his roster who are jockeying for position because they want a better spot. They want more spotlight. They want what they feel, is owed to them. They want more money. They want more prestige. That's just one aspect. Then he has to deal with the writing of the show. Then he has to deal with all the behind-the-scenes stuff. He has a board of directors. He has, it's a publicly traded company. There's a lot of stuff that Vince has to deal with in order to run a television show, in order to run a pay-per-view product. There's the network. I mean, the WWE is so multifaceted. It's so hard to even think about one man managing all of that. Sure, he has people underneath him that are helping a lot. He just recently rehired Bruce Pritchard, which I think is a big help to Vince because it's somebody who he can trust. Yeah. But you have to remember, a lot of the big guys that Vince trusted aren't there anymore. And of course, in the place of a guy like Gerald Briscoe, maybe now he has Triple H. And Shane is back. Stephanie's there. There are people in Vince's inner circle that he can trust. But for the most part, this all falls down to him. And he's dealing with all of this. And when things do fall apart, everybody's going to look at it as it being the WWE's fault and ultimately Vince McMahon's fault. But let me ask you guys a question.
Sure.
Whose fault is it now that we have AEW's big pay-per-view coming up, and one of their matches looks like it's going to be canceled because Pac says he doesn't want to lose to a guy like Adam Page? That seems to be the report that came out. Who are we blaming for this? We're not blaming Tony Khan. Right. We're not blaming Cody Rhodes. It's just, oh, man, I can't believe that happened. So why is it that we're so adamantly angry about when things like this happen in WWE? Guys like The Revival and Sasha Banks. I mean, I've got hate messages on my video that I put up about the points I've made about Sasha Banks. If I make a video about this, about AEW, about Neville refusing to do a job, where's all of that?
Yeah.
We have to understand we don't live in this bubble. And yes, the grass sometimes isn't always greener on the other side. Yeah. Talent is going to be hard to deal with. And it's about how you manage them, how you cultivate them, and how you make them work for you. Right. Vince has been doing that since the 70s, at least the 80s. And he's learned from his father. He's learned from all the other promoters that he's worked around, this entire time. Yeah. Are there going to be faults within the WWE system? 100%. Nothing is foolproof. Nothing is viable 100% of the time. And we're forgetting when we talk about ratings, this is a 52-week-a-year television, episodic television show that's being written. There's nothing else like this. Yeah. All the other top-rated shows, things like the NFL, Game of Thrones, things of that ilk, they're around for 13 episodes, 8 episodes, 16 weeks in a season, maybe the playoffs, 19. Mm-hmm. That's it. The WWE's around for 52 weeks. It's hard to keep somebody's interest for that long.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Vince is getting older. Some of the decisions he's making are questionable.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was Vince McMahon, I'd stick to my guns too, because everything I've touched has worked so far. It's not working right this second, but it'll come around eventually, and that's going to be Vince's point of view. And who's going to tell him he's wrong? Because it's always happened.
You're right. You're right. Those are I give it to you, man. I will give that to you. He's going with what he thinks has always worked, and it has always worked for him. Vince McMahon has sustained this for so long. So even with the reports coming out, coming from Vince's perspective, I see why he just keeps, he's dying on these hills, because he feels like it is going to work. Listen, the old dog's not ready to go down, gentlemen. So I definitely understand from that perspective. Andre, where are you at? Final thoughts on everything that that I just spoke of and that we covered as far as a toxic work environment and that being caused by Vince McMahon. Final thoughts, bro.
So I think there's maybe 3 levels of talent in the WWE right now, and even people that have just left recently. So you have the likes of Roman Reigns, maybe Seth Rollins, Randy Orton, the ones you would consider to be the locker room leaders, the ones that are getting the big pushes and, are clearly the faces of the company. Then you have, let's say, the Zack Ryders and the Finn Balor's, who are happy just making their money, who've had to take their lumps on the roster, but they've been patient enough, and I would even put Becky Lynch in this too. They've been patient enough that once they found an opportunity, they seized it, and look where they are now. I mean, Finn may not be the Universal Champion, but he's in the Intercontinental title scene. He's got the title. So, they're going to invest in him going forward. And Becky found her opportunity and, shot to the moon in 1 year. And Ryder, who we thought was going to completely be done and ousted, he stuck to his guns. He found a podcast that worked for him and Hawkins. Yeah. And now they're tag team. And I love those guys. And then you have the lower layer of guys who just are frustrated with the way they've been handled, the way they've been booked, and they want out. And you look at somebody like, say, we haven't talked about Dean Ambrose here, but here's a guy that he did everything he needed to do. He got over. He had a full package personality. He won all the main titles he needed to win. And then it was like, well, what else is there for me to do? I'm just bored here. I'm tired. And he had burnout, and they allowed him to walk away. So I'm thinking to myself, the environment is certainly toxic, and we could talk all day about who should get pushed, who should be, thrown back to NXT. But maybe for Vince, at this point, if you got so many people out there and competition could actually be good for business, then let's start dropping some dead weight. Let's, these guys, even the writing staff who are not happy being there, why continue to pay their salaries if they have an opportunity to make money on the indie scene, go to AEW, and, just try to their best to flourish in those other opportunities? Because what I'm looking for with AEW is not another Monday Night Wars. I'm not looking for one company trying to put the other company out of business. I just want to see the wrestling business in general get better, you know. And I know we're sort of at the point now where, WWE is not catering to my age range. I'm 35. I'm way past that point. It's all about the kids that are going to be continuing to buy John Cena's merchandise when I'm my age, So as far as I'm concerned, I just want to see wrestling in general get better and see all these guys get opportunities to get pushed elsewhere if they're not happy in one spot. Vince has to let go a bit. That's my only feeling about it.
Oh, no, and I agree with you there, man. I agree with you there. We have to evolve the business. That's a big thing. We have to evolve the business, and we need with everything that I'm hearing about Vince McMahon and where his mindset is, as far as he's gonna do what Vince does, and we're gonna see, because now AEW is here now to provide an alternative, and if people are as tired as they say that they are, it will provide good competition for the WWE if they just decide, hey, AEW is working, AEW is something cool, and we'll just go ahead and watch that. On the other side of things, I think that sometimes talents do get too big for their britches. They do. I mean, even with this whole Pac thing. I mean, I know when I'm looking at Pac here, and if this is true, if these rumors are true about him, I'm looking at him like, man, you had a chance to be a part of a very, very huge thing, and your ego is in the way of it, man. You're not allowing yourself to be a part of this because you're having to worry about taking a loss, man. Come on, man. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. This show is bigger than that. So it's a strange situation. It's a strange situation. Before we go ahead and call this a really, really great episode, I mean, fantastic episode, Michael, I want you to briefly talk about this last part here because I know you were hot to talk about it. The Firefly Funhouse stuff. This writer says the Firefly Funhouse stuff is all Bray Wyatt's idea. Bray is described as an absolute genius, and he helps other wrestlers with their promos. He's one of the best guys in the locker room. Could you briefly touch on that before we call this episode?
I'll do my best to be as brief as possible on this. But
Sure.
Again, I'll just say that Bray Wyatt, but we need more people in wrestling like him.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if we're all saw the story about the mask, the guy who made the mask for the big reveal. As far as what Bray Wyatt's response to the mask was when he saw the final design, he told the guy, "You saved my career."
Man.
Why is somebody like Bray Wyatt in a spot where his career needed to be saved?
Right. Right.
Because I don't know about you guys, but that guy's just light years. I mean, I don't know if you want to say he's in the wrong era, because I could see Bray Wyatt working in any era. He would have worked, or back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, Attitude Era, doesn't matter. He could have done it. He's that good. And I love hearing that what he's contributing backstage. Yeah. And I think you can look at Aleister Black. I think the things that they're trying to do with him, because all of a sudden, even though he ran with Ricochet, his buddy for a while, now they got him trying to be like all dark and ominous and that kind of thing, the way he kind of should have been to begin with. But at least they're trying to go with that now. But yeah, and that's just one example. But yeah, man, it's just like, this is an example of let talent do their thing. Yeah. If it works, then great. Then you got something that people are talking about, and we talked about it ad nauseum on this show. Yeah. At least I know I have. Yep. So hell, there's probably to the point some people probably maybe even tired of hearing about it. If that's the case, sorry, but facts are facts. And how much is that a stark contrast again to the other non-characters that they have on that show? And that's no disrespect to the talent at all, or the writers themselves. It brings us back to Vince. They just don't let them be who they are or who they want to be. Yeah. They're artists, man. Let them sing their song. Let them paint their picture. Let them be what they want to be. And if it doesn't resonate with the masses, then we move on to the next one and try it again. Again, what do you have to lose at this point? Yeah. Yep. So and I'll end it there. I know run tight on time. But yeah, that's kind of my opinion on that.
Fantastic points, bro. Hey, you already know what time it is, Michael. We're going to do it in order. Michael, go ahead and plug, bro.
All right. Yep. You guys can catch me on the Twitter at Hutch IYH. Hit me up, at me. Let me know you follow me. We can talk about wrestling, video games, and whatever nerdy stuff you want to converse about. So hit me up. And regardless if you agree with what we're saying here, and again this weekend, once this show transpires, whatever side you're on, we're all one, man. We all love this art. We all love this business, this sport of professional wrestling. So it's been great chatting it up with you guys, and I think we had a hell of a show here, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. You guys take care and have a good week.
Oh, yes, I know I did. And my man, Albert, it is your time, your platform to plug away, brother. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, Con, Michael, Andre, thank you guys for chatting about wrestling with me. It was a pleasure to be on the show, and such a fun time hanging out with you guys and talking about this, what we all love. So that's always a great time. Yes. If you guys are so inclined, you can follow me. I'm on Twitter at KYD Justice. I'm also go to YouTube and search for the Slam Sessions Network. If you guys are so nice, you can give me a follow and a like and a subscribe, and then let me know. Drop some things in the comments. Some of you guys want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do some videos about them. And always, if you ever have any suggestions for any of the shows that I do, it's facebook.com/the Slam Sessions Podcast Network. Let me know what you guys want me to talk about, and I will talk about it. And again, Con, thank you so much for the opportunity to be on here.
No, bro, thank you for coming on the show. Truly appreciate you. Thank you so much. I really, really do. That's going to move it on to my man, Andre. Brother, please go ahead and plug anything that you'd like to plug.
Yeah, Con, Mike, this was so much fun to do. Thank you for having me on, and always with my partner in crime, Albert. So, I do the Silver Screen Action Figure podcast. We talk about mostly movie licensed toy lines from yesterday and today. We have a Facebook page for it. You can also follow it on Twitter at SilverScreenAF1. And also, you can see my podcast episodes on my official movie production YouTube channel, which is AJ Epics Productions, AJEPYX. And I also have a Twitter for that as well, which is at AJEPYX, and my website, which is AJEpicsProductions.com.
Great. And thank you so much for coming on, bro. Really appreciate you being a part of this epic episode. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Great to be on it.
Great. Hey, guys, this was another great episode of In Your House. Thank you to all my guests. Of course, my man Michael, my man Albert, Slam Sessions Podcast, and my buddy Andre, Silver Screen Action Figure Podcast. Hey, let me let you know where you guys can listen to us at. You guys can listen to us at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Twitcher, iHeartRadio, Himalaya. Hey, you don't have an Apple device? That's all right. We're on the Google Play Store. Anywhere that you guys are, we can get to you. Hey, check us out. October 5th, Heroes and Legends 13 at Fort Wayne, Indiana. We are the official podcast of Heroes and Legends 13, where we will be looking for interviews with Boogeyman. We will be looking for interviews with Ken Anderson, and we will be looking for an interview with the Icon, Sting. Hey, you guys already know what it is. Hop on this bandwagon. Get on. Get gone. Because the household, well, we're going strong. You guys can have a great day, a great rest of your week. Peace.